Welcome, welcome, welcome to this month's Deal Clinic Live. Can you believe we're in quarter two? Now, I trust this year is going really, really well for you already. We have another exciting episode for you. We actually have one of the winners from the Property Training Awards that we did earlier this year. This individual is going to share some serious gold that will help you in your sourcing business, and in turn, that will help your clients. Now, it's how to sell property deals fast with ads and automation. So, as usual, we will be sharing some snippets from the show going out to our social media on Facebook and Instagram. And the episode will be available on our YouTube channel, Sourcing Investments Limited, in about a week's time. You'll also see some YouTube shorts. If you haven't registered to the platform already, feel free to go to sourcinginvestments.co.uk. Okay, and if you want to see previous episodes on the YouTube channel, that is Sourcing Investments Limited. Now, I do encourage the interaction. Today is going to be more like a conversation. So those viewers that are with us live, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat box and I will direct those to Daniel for you. If you are watching this on the replay and you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me at bonnie@sourcinginvestments.co.uk and I will forward those on to Daniel for you. So, as mentioned, we have our guest who is Daniel Latto. Now, Daniel is the winner of Best Entry Level Training for Property Awards 2024. He has an amazing course, Property Sourcing Training. I recommend you go and have a look at that. It's where he condenses 22 years of experience into 90 videos to fast track your results. Okay, I'm just going to show you a quick view of the page if I can get that up. Bear with me, you know my tech abilities. Bear with me one second. Okay, so this is Daniel's page on our platform. Bear with me, we have more people joining. Apologies. So this is Daniel's page on the platform itself, and you'll be able to go through this. You can see here that it's only £27 for all that value. So you'll be able to see the course breakdown. I'm not going to go into that right now. Feel free to go and check that out yourself. Okay, so £27 for 22 years worth of experience and knowledge to help fast track your success. Right, so as I mentioned, today is a conversation between Daniel and you, so feel free to drop those questions into the chat box. I'll keep my eye there and direct those to Daniel. And with that, it is great pleasure to introduce you to Daniel Latto. Daniel, over to you.
Hey everybody. Hi everybody. Thank you very much, Bonnie. How are you today, Bonnie, anyway?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for asking, Daniel. You?
Good stuff. Yes, I'm really good actually. I'm in Spain at the moment, which is where I live these days. And we've been here for 12 years. And it's nice and sunny, get to walk down by the beach with the dog. I mean, let's face it, we can't really complain at that. But that's not without its challenges. You know, sourcing properties overseas in the UK is obviously not the easiest thing to do, but we've been doing it for 26 years. And so in that 26 years, we found out what worked, we found out what didn't work, we found out what absolutely didn't work. We tried some bonkers ideas, that lot didn't work either. And so in today's session, I really want to share that journey and also try and accelerate other people's journeys to getting some better results. And if people have questions, please stick them in the box down below so that I can answer those for you. So really, in today's session, I wanted to cover about running adverts and how to fast track or close property sales as quickly as possible. Not necessarily property sales, but sourcing property deals as fast as possible. And in my world, I like to break things down really succinctly. So I think that when you're sourcing deals, there's only two things you got to do, right? break it down. This is all you got to do, folks. Dead easy. First up, you got to find a deal. Dead easy. Just do that. And then the second up, find the buyer. That's it. Right. Podcast over. Thanks very much. So, and this is what happens is people break it down into those two things. And then obviously you have to break them down further. And really, this is all about marketing. And, to find deals and get deals across the line, first of all, you've got to find a deal, but you've also got to find the person who's going to buy the deal. And they're two different types of customer. So I always think we've got two customers. The first customer is the person who's got a house we want to sell. And that can be for, see if I can remember the 4 Ds: death, divorce, departure. What's the fourth one? I can't remember the fourth one. But they've got a problem and they're looking for a solution. And there are many solutions out there, and your marketing has to match what their problem is. So one of the solutions that they can do is they can go to an estate agent and they go, "Hey, Mr. Estate Agent, got this house. It's worth 100 grand. It's never worth 100 grand, is it? It's worth 100 grand." Uh, uh, and the estate agent goes, "No, you're right. It's actually worth 105. You should put it on with us." And the person goes, "Yeah, brilliant." And then they complain after 3 months, no viewings, it's not been sold and that kind of thing. So that's one option that they could go down. The other option is they might see an advert, and this is one of your adverts, one of my adverts. And then the question is, well, where are you advertising? And in marketing, we have this saying, fish where the fish are. So where are your fish? Well, your fish are sat at home reading the newspaper. Hello, reading the newspaper. Okay. Is a display advert maybe in a newspaper you could do? Is the lineage in the back of a newspaper, which is an old school thing that we used to do, and I don't think people do it as much. What about other forms of newspapers? Like, I don't know where you are, Bonnie, but in Leeds we used to have like a 3 ads, or it used to be called a yellow paper, and I used to put adverts. So if you go into Asda, and by the way, I'm from Leeds, so I sound like this, and I'm quite common. So when we go into Asda in Leeds, and there's all the newspapers there and the magazines, there was a newspaper folded over, and I would always put the advert at the top next to the name of the newspaper, because that's called above the fold. And when people are looking at the magazines, they would see our advert. So then it's like, well, where else can you run these sort of ads? So newspapers, obviously, fish where the fish are. People are at home. So leaflet drops. Leaflet drops are massive. But just a caveat here, you wouldn't run a leaflet drop campaign to find an investor. So that has to be a different type of marketing. We'll talk about investors soon. But for now, let's continue with people who need to solve their property problem. So we've got newspapers, we've got leaflets. What about the local Chinese takeaway? When you go in and there on the wall is the postcards from all the local trades, we would put an advert up there. Or how about this one? How about your local pizza company? And like, what do pizza companies have to buy lots of? Pizza boxes. How about you buy the pizza boxes, okay? And you stick your label on, or you get them pre-printed with all your fancy advertising, because the people that will be buying pizzas will live in that catchment area, and they also might be the people. And so this is my idea, and this is why we're able to do lots of deals. Is because in my mind, I'd be the thought of a person. They leave work, they go home, so they're getting on a bus, and the bus turns up, and on the side of the bus is our advert. Then they're on the bus and they sit down, and there on the inside is another one of our adverts. And as we're driving home to the Chinese takeaway, which we'll get to in a minute because we need dinner, as we're driving home, there's a billboard. Guess what? There's our advert up there. Then we get off the bus, we're going to a Chinese. There's our little postcard. They get the Chinese thing, and on the top of a little silver tray is our little advert on that. They go home, and like at this point, they're thinking, God, this guy's everywhere. So then we get home, and they open the door, and there on the floor is one of our leaflets. I'm like, for God's sake. And then they open the newspaper, and there's our advert. Like, you should
Wow.
be everywhere all at once. That, for me, like this holistic form of marketing, be everywhere all at once. And that's one of the reasons why we're able to get so many deals. And we actually did a podcast because I'm a great believer in dropping leaflets for finding vendors. And at our peak, we were dropping 50,000 leaflets a month, which
Wow.
is huge, a significant amount. And just briefly, we do cover this in the training, but just briefly, what we would do is we would drop our own leaflet. And I had a lettings agency at the time, which we created because we had all these properties to manage. So I would drop our We Buy Houses for Cash leaflet. I would drop our lettings leaflet. It was on the other side actually. Then we would also drop our We Drop Leaflets leaflet because we created a leaflet company. We would also drop the local taxi firm and the local Chinese takeaway or a hairdresser's or a pizza takeaway. So those two customers who were paying £30 a thousand, so that's £60, that would come to us and we'd pay our guy 40 or £50 to go and drop all our four different leaflets every single day. And using that strategy, we were able to absolutely ramp that up. And drop tens of thousands of leaflets every single month. And so the phone was ringing off the hook because we were just out there marketing, like literally, like what's the word? Carpet bombing with leaflets and adverts and just being everywhere all at once. And so if
Wow.
anyone's got any questions about that, by the way, I'm more than happy to expand into some of that while I grab a quick drink of coffee.
I have a question actually.
Mm.
That really, because I love mindset. This is not necessarily a question with regards to the ads yet, but
Yeah,
I'm aware that you have to impress on the subconscious consistently, continually, in order for something to eventually make itself aware. So, where did you learn that, Daniel? Where did you learn that, or is that something that you have organically developed over the years, or did you have like the skill for it originally
no,
anyway?
I didn't have a skill. So, and if you speak to most people, they'd say I haven't got any skills anyway. But what it was just like, how do we get our message in front of as many people as possible? Because for me, marketing is about how many eyeballs are looking at your stuff. Okay. And then if you can get the eyeballs to look at your stuff, the message going into those eyeballs has to be the correct message. And this is sometimes something that people miss. So, for example, if you've got someone who's going through a divorce right now and they need to sell their house because they're in a terrible situation, happy to let it go as fast as possible. And I've got an advert out saying, have you had a death in the family? Like those two things don't match, right? So we would call this person who's going through a divorce or a separation an avatar. So our advert has to match this avatar. So that would mean that, the types of leaflets we would drop would message differently. So we would say one that would have you been left a house? Death in the family, have you been left a property? Are you in debt and need to consolidate all those debts and not consolidate, but do you need to get all those debts paid off? Have you got bailiffs knocking? Those sort of things. So those people who got bailiffs knocking will respond very well to, have you got bailiffs knocking? Do you want a discreet conversation around what to do about it? And do you want your own home and that kind of thing? So it has to be matched up. And that's one of the reasons why we drop 50,000 leaflets. So for example, one week we might drop a leaflet saying in a new area and it would say, we buy houses for cash, right? How many leaflets do people get that say we buy houses for cash? Like every goddamn leaflet, and it's not
Yeah.
good enough. Like that has to change. You have to get a little bit more creative with that. When we were doing this at its peak 15 years ago, do you remember Mortgage Express where we would buy on one day and then we'd refinance and pull the money back out the next day? God, that sent so many people bust. Because it sounds great in principle, by the way, but unless you got control, unless you can control what you're doing, it's like giving sweeties to kids, right? It's a bit of a nightmare. So you have to be controlled in the way that you're going to market. And so you need a conscious plan about how that's going to look. So week one, we might drop a leaflet saying we will buy houses for cash. Week 3 or 4, we would say, hey, we dropped you a leaflet, but we didn't hear from you. Like it sounds like we're putting the blame back onto them, which makes, from an unconscious point of view, like, oh yeah, I did mean to do that. I should do that. He's right. So,
Amazing.
and obviously not everybody would think like that. People are like, yeah, but it was just a leaflet. Why should I? But now they're having this internal conversation. They're responding internally, unconsciously to our advertise. That's all you want, really. Because when the time comes, they might not be in that situation on week 1 or week 3. 6 months down the line of getting these leaflets every, couple of months, and they're going, God, this guy's everywhere. And actually, I am in trouble now, and I do need to sort this out. So you have to be consistent all the way through. And this is, I think, where a lot of property sources fail. They go, I'm going to drop some leaflets, and we have really interesting conversations. So I'll give you some examples. I have coaching clients. We go, oh, drop some leaflets. Brilliant. How many did you drop? Oh, like a lot. I spent all day doing it. Okay, how many did you do? Like 400, like in a day. Yeah, like you should be dropping 900 to 1,000 maybe in a day. It's intense, right? And if you've never dropped leaflets yourself, you should go out and drop leaflets yourself because you should know what you're expecting other people to do. I always believe, right? So so then I'm like, okay, so you drop 400 leaflets. How many sales do you think you're going to get off 400 leaflets? Like none. Like why would you think you're going to get? Why do you think that you're so amazing and magical that only you can get 10 leads off 400? It's never going to happen. You've got to drop 10, 20, 30,000 leaflets. But people come and go, oh, yeah, yeah, I dropped leaflets. How many did you do? Well, I dropped 1,000 last week and 1,000 this week. It's like, well, you might as well not bother. It's just a waste of time. You've got to absolutely ramp it up. Um, and so consistency is the key.
Mm.
And most people are inconsistent. And when people start off, they buy the training and they go, yeah, yeah, I'm going to watch all the training. They only get halfway through it. And then they try and implement what they've learned from that first half. And then they don't even get the leaflets printed because like stuff just gets in the way and life gets in the way. And mentally, like confidence and like a lack of self-belief gets in the way. And all that stuff, we all go through it, you know. Um, I hate to bring Donald Trump into it, but there was a point in time when Donald Trump was unconfident. I know that might sound, even though he's all over the place, but and Elon Musk and pick any other politician or any other businessman, Steve Jobs would have had that time when he was so unconfident. This iPod thing is probably not going to work. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? Right? We all have it, but this consistency will beat talent most of the time. Obviously, you get these few people who are just ultra talented and can just run one advert and get amazing results. That's not me. That's not you. That's none of the people listening. They are an aberration, you know. Consistently dropping, you know, let's say 10,000 leaflets for the next 12 months is the thing that will get you those deals coming through. Dropping 20,000 leaflets this month in a big launch, like it's not going to do it. You might get a couple of leads, you might get a deal or so, but that consistency over a long period of time, that's really what's going to help people getting those results.
Amazing, amazing.
So, is
Sorry.
there any questions? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we do. We do have some questions. So, Simone has asked, do you pay someone to post those leaflets?
Mm. Yes is the answer, but we don't use an external company to do it. We created a company to do it. So at the time, I had a lettings agency, and we had a furniture package company, quite a large furniture package company. And so we were dropping leaflets for furniture packages and lettings and so on. And so we would hire students to drop those leaflets for us. And there's a whole mechanism, a whole strategy around, you know, because the obvious question is, how do you stop them? Just stick them in a bin, you know? So we would, so I'll tell you the strategy very briefly. It's on episode 2 or 3 on my own podcast. People can go and find that. But what we would do is we'd hire in pairs and sometimes in fours. And so one person sometimes might have a car. So we'd pay them like an extra, you know, instead of £40 a thousand, we might spend £45, so they get an extra fiver. Uh, they'd all meet in one place. We'd all go into the car and drive over, and we'd have backpacks for them, which were wore on the front with 4 compartments for all the leaflets. So, you know, get each leaflet and post it. Walk up to the next house, get each leaflet and post it, and they go in pairs. And then at the end of the day, they want paying, obviously. So I go, yeah, that's fine. We would have pre-printed invoices from them to us because they've done a service because these are contractors, okay? And we were very because of employment laws and all of that kind of thing, we were very clear that they were contractors for us, and so on. They had to get their own insurance. They had to deal with their own tax liability for the income that they're making, and so on. So they were contractors. They give us an invoice that we'd pre-done. They would sign it, and on the back of that invoice was a feedback form, and it would ask names of the other people, what were they like, anything good, anything bad, anything you want to say, blah blah blah, and we would get them to kind of give dirt on each other, really. So one of them, you know, smoked all the time. I don't care about that; it's fine, it's not a biggie. But at least we were getting feedback, and so sometimes you get a bad apple, and you'd be like, "That's fine, we got feedback. We just won't use them next time." And you know, you will get people like that. But having that level of control. Um, Control, I just want to talk about for a second because I'm all over the place, right? Like, I don't think I've got ADHD, but my wife tells me I might have. So, and I've always been like that. I know I'm a bit, you know, I've always been like that. what I find is that I have to put things in place to control myself, because if I don't, I will go off on all sorts of tangents. Like this call, I'll go off on all sorts of tangents, and that was a really good learning process. So that in all my businesses now, not that I have many businesses, I've got, a couple of businesses, and they all have very strict controls and strategies and usually flow charts as well. And I'm not a flow chart kind of guy because I'm all over the place, but I force myself to go, okay, on the leaflet drops, this is how we find leaflet droppers. Gumtree actually was the way that we did that. Um, and then all that system I'd just gone through, that would be flow charted out onto a sheet of paper using PowerPoint or something like that, so that I knew where are we in this flow chart. When we took on new landlords for the lettings agency that we saw in 2011, we would have a flow chart of, okay, this is the landlord, he needs this. Have they filled it in? Have they done, have we got keys? Have we got all the documentation like gas certificates and all that stuff? And it was tick boxes, because I'm dreadful at self-management. It's something I've had to learn over time. And I say this because as we move forward with social media, do you remember a time when you could sit there and watch a 3-hour film without checking your phone? I do, but I'm incapable of doing that now because my attention span is ruined with short form content. I create a lot of short form content, so I'm one of the reasons for it. But it's like I just you just have to recognize who you are, and obviously not everybody's like that, and other people have that level of control. But for me, having these strategies in place, if you're going to run a business like a property sourcing business, then you should run it like a business,
Yeah.
not a part-time thing. It's like people go scuba diving, they get all the gear, they read it all, they watch all the YouTube videos on scuba diving, they buy all the stuff, and they go to the local lake and dip the toe in it and go, that's not for me. And it's like, that's not scuba diving. You got to immerse yourself into it, just dipping your toe in the water. That's what that's what people do with this business. They don't do it seriously. Haven't got the strategy in place. Uh, and then as soon as they come up against something that stops them, like a belief of dropping 1,000 leaflets a day for 7 days, let's say. Oh, but what if somebody yells at me? Like I fought that. I've had people yelling at me, who do you think you are? Just
Yeah.
dropping a leaflet, mate. Relax, it's gonna happen. And so if that does happen, maybe think about how you would prefer to react rather than just reacting. Might be a good way of doing it. If that's your fear, work it through. And so just going back to leaflets, that's how we would manage that process. And the feedback form on the back of the invoices. And obviously, if I've got 4 people and it's £40 a thousand, I just spent 160 quid. I want to be able to account for that £160 to the HMRC to drop it off my tax bill, right? Because it's an expense of a business. So, did that answer the question?
Yeah, that does answer. I think that was
Okay,
brilliant. I've got questions on the back of that. And Simone says yes, thank you. Simone
saw
actually
that.
does have another question. She's asked, but I think you've kind of touched on this, Daniel. How long does it take to post all those leaflets? And I think you pretty much said for a day it's 1,000 for the day, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's tight. To be honest, it's tight. It's like, if a leaflet dropper comes back and they dropped 850, I'm all right with it. And also, the other side of that is, how do you know it's 1,000 leaflets? So do you count 1,000 to make sure it's fat? And the answer is no. We would count the initial 1,000, and we would have a pile on the desk that's, you can't see my desk, but it's this high is 1,000. And so we'd get another bunch of leaflets and we'd get some off until it measured, and that's approximately 1,000. Because I'm like, if it's 800 and we drop them off, brilliant. If it's 1,100, fine. It will just balance out over time in my little
Yeah.
world. Some people are so anal, it has to be exactly 1,000, right? And if you are like that, the chances of you being successful at that are slimmer. It has to be said. Relax a little bit. It's approximate. It'll do. It's good enough.
Yeah.
Um, when I dropped leaflets, because it's like sometimes you get letterboxes. I used to drop newspapers when I was like 13. Like I had a paper round, right? And you get letterboxes that'll take your finger off if you're not careful. You need to understand about that, because you don't want your guys getting injured. And when you're meeting up with them, you want to say, check for any beware of the dog signs, check for those letterboxes. Do not put your fingers in a letterbox because the dog might nibble them off. It can happen. So um, I do believe in doing it yourself, because I want you to know how hard dropping leaflets is. It's really hard. It's boring. It's time consuming. It's mind. It is. These are all the things, um, and you need to understand what that's like so that you can um, understand what your leaflet droppers are going through. And sometimes we're getting pizza vouchers and just little random things. If they'd come back and we'd use the same guys time after time, we'd drop them an extra 20 quid because. And also, the reason why we use students is that we would get messages in the morning going, Friday morning, I'm off out with the lads tomorrow night, Saturday night, and I've skint, got no money. I'm like, brilliant, let's drop some leaflets, 40 quid, and they loved it. And so they were trustworthy because they had a need which we were helping them fulfill, which was to go out and get drunk with their buddies. So there are always opportunities. Have we had people who've just dumped leaflets? Yes. It's just part and parcel. It's like driving a car. You're going to have a bump at some point. Yeah. Are you going to cause it? Maybe. The risk is there. It's life and it's not a straight line. Which leads me on to like obstacles. I want to talk about obstacles because we all have obstacles, I
Yeah.
think. Well, we do. And often the obstacle that we think is going to be there isn't actually there. It's a mindset obstacle. And the mindset aspect, one of the things that really bugs me is you go on a weekend course, we go, okay, we're going to talk about mindset. We talk about mindset, right? And mindset is be positive. Right, thanks for that. It's like, oh God, never thought of that, and it's like you have to get a solid mindset to be successful in business. You have to understand that you are going to fail and you're not going to just fail once, you're going to continually fail. And it's like you should be building failure into your processes from a from two reasons. The first reason is so that you know it's coming and you know how to react when it comes. And the second reason is so that you can see what's ahead of you before you get there and you can put the things in place so that you actually don't fail. So
Yeah.
failure is a really important aspect, and you are going to get obstacles, and you are going to have these mindset things, and so you should have these pre-framed things written down. Okay, when you feel negative about dropping leaflets, that someone's going to yell at you. No, you're helping someone going through a divorce, a horrific divorce, and you're helping them get closure. You're actually providing a community service by providing that service. Now, I believe in ethical property sourcing, and I was at an event once, and this guy was on front, and he was talking about him sourcing, and he said, "What I do is," and it was really, for 50 people. What I do is the day before, I pull the offer before exchange, and I said to my mate Dave, I whispered over, I said, "That's why we don't sell to property sources, right?" And he was at the front, and he goes, "Sorry, did you have something to add there?" God, I got caught. I'm like, "No, no, it's nothing." He said, "No, no, please share with the group." I'm like, "Okay." So I said, "Well, I find it really unethical that you would do that." We've been selling stuff recently, and I've had that done to me the day before. We told him to piss off, because it's just so unethical. And I believe in ethical property sourcing, and I'm there as a service to help someone move on to the next stage of their life, whatever that might be. A death in a family, bad debt, a divorce, departure, that's the fourth D, moving to Australia kind of thing. I'm there to help them do that. And if I'm not there, who else is going to do it? Well, they might get another property sourcer, but will they be as ethical as I am? Will they give them the best? Sometimes it's not price that they need, it's the best deal that they need. And the best deal and the best price are two different things. It could be that they're leaving in the next 7 days, or they're getting divorced in the next 7 days and we just want rid of it. In which case we would do a rent to rent or a lease option on it. We'd rent it from them for a year while the sale goes through. We might do all of that. So I like to think that it's a community service that we offer. And if you think about business like that, if I'm a butcher and if I want to help my community eat better meat or eat better foods, I would be coming up with recipes. Yeah, this leg of lamb would go with this wine. I don't know anything about white legs of lamb or wine, but that's what I would be doing because I want to help people. And I think what you put in is what you get out. And if you put good karma into the community, that's what you'll get out. And so having an ethical point of view. So if you're worried about dropping leaflets because someone's going to yell at you, okay, that one person's upset, but you might save someone's life, or you might help someone else to move forward with their life. So I think that's really, really important.
I love that. I love that. And that's so key to think forward positively, not think forward negatively. And that's a
Yeah,
real key difference. Daniel, I've got so many questions, and the questions are coming through, and they're
cool.
still around the printing, but I want to move on to the onto the ads and the automation.
Exactly. Okay, great. And I was just thinking the same thing. So we've dealt with finding property sellers, okay, using traditional marketing methods like leafleting and adverts and that kind of thing. Now we've ran Facebook ads for that group of people, and they've not been as effective as leaflet drops and that kind of thing. Bear in mind we're a Facebook ad agency, and we've had some results, but not good enough as far as I'm concerned. And I think the reason is that anyone can run a Facebook ad, and there is no trust in the Facebook ads. This is part of the problem with running Facebook ads. Because think about the person that's seeing that. They might be in the 60s, they're on Facebook looking at family stuff, and then your shiny advert saying we'll buy houses for cash. There's just no credibility on that ad. Whereas that same person might get leaflet. They're used to getting leaflets. For the last 40 years, they've got leaflets. There might be a website address at the bottom, and yes, they'll type in to go and look at the website. Yes, they might look at the Facebook ad and still go to the website, and a decent website will add credibility on the Facebook ad. But you're still up against the fact that it's a Facebook ad and has such little credibility. And so I think when you're sourcing deals, you should be using more traditional marketing methods. Having said that, to find investors, you should actually be using Facebook ads because traditional marketing methods, well, what you're going to do, drop leaflets to find investors, just doesn't work. Running Facebook ads for investors, so you can target people aged 45 and over into property who live in London, let's just say, and let's say you're a property sourcer in, let's just say Leeds, because that's where I'm from. So let's say you're sourcing deals in Leeds, you can run ads in London, and the sort of advert that you would run is two-bed property for sale, valued at 100, now selling for 70. Like, do you think you're going to get people clicking on that ad going, what's the catch? Like, because, like, think about that. That is one of the questions they will ask. What is the catch? So maybe on that advert as well, you need to say, we are a professional sourcing company. We use our extensive network of sources to find excellent yielding, high yielding, below market value deals, and then we sell them onto our marketplace. And then the advert would basically go to a form, and that form, when they fill it in, that goes onto their email marketing list. Now they're on the list. Every time you get a deal, you send it out to your list, and that's how you automate it. Gosh, that was
Right.
quick, wasn't it? But I mean, I said that in one or two sentences, probably one because I don't think I took a breath. But the process of that is actually quite difficult to implement.
Yeah.
It's like, remember right at the start, being a I'll just find the deal and find the buyer, and that's it. It's easy to say, it's really difficult to do because there's a whole bunch of stuff underlying that. So you need Facebook ads, you need a landing page, you need email software, you need email follow-ups, um, and then you need a template for the emails that you're going to send out. And if you've not got any deals yet, how do you do that? And so we talk about this in a training. One of the things I like to do is I like to find a buyer first and then ask them what they want. And now I've got the buyer, they're in the mailing list, and we just send them everything anyway. But if something does come across my desk, let's say they're after a two-bed house for 70 grand in Leeds with a tenant of £700, they exist, by the way. If you're buying below market value is about 100, So if that does come across, I can go through my mailing list and go, oh yeah, Bob's after a two-bed, 70 grand, 700 quid. And I'll pick up the phone and speak to him. That's how we can sell it directly to him. If he doesn't want it, we'll then send it out to the rest of the mailing list. And then if nobody buys it, we might take that property. We'll run some Facebook ads on that specific property. So if you think about this, if you've got two or three or four of those properties and you're running Facebook ads, and Janet in London is on Facebook and they're a property sourcer over 45 within our targeting market, they're going to see the first house, then they're going to see the second house, then they're going to see the third house. That's going to tell them, God, these guys get a lot of deals. That looks like a decent deal. They're going to sign up. And
Yeah.
so that's the automation part. And then, there should be a whole nurture process behind it, which is not just about selling property deals. Because, it's 2025. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. Like, do you trust Donald Trump? Do you know what I mean? Like, do we trust any politician? Do we trust Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson? He's got positive vibes. I don't trust him. People don't trust anybody anymore. And so you've got to work on the nurturing because you're not just selling properties, you're selling yourself. So you've got to build this credibility. In my own digital marketing agency, we produce a lot of content and we send out a lot of organic content. And the reason why we do that is because over a long period of time, when you see my shiny face popping up on yet another video, we're like, God, that guy's everywhere. It's consistently there throughout the next 12 months. And it has been for the last few years. So it builds a level of trust. And what we say is usually the same thing, but in a different way. And so the message is always congruent. Be ethical, help people. What you put in is what you get out. It's always congruent all the way through. And so some of those sales cycles can be quite long. Might be, I'll give you an example. I was speaking at the Manchester Property Meet, PNC, Property Networking Club, and I was on the expert panel. And just last year or the year before, we sold a website to a guy, and I said to him, "How did you hear about us? Where did you know?" He said, "Oh, about 12 years ago, you were on the expert panel at the Property Networking Club." And I'm
Wow.
like, "God, that's actually quite a long sales cycle, isn't it?" But we've
That,
been congruent all the way through. And putting content out there, by the way, is so valuable to building that level of trust. Because now they're on your mailing list, now they're going to start watching your content. Don't just talk about properties, talk about ethics. Now they know you're ethical. Talk about being positive minded and helping. Now they know that you're in it to help other people. Um, and so you can build up this level of trust through organic content. And that's another way to build that trust, which will improve the automation when you're actually selling these deals because people trust you before they even get on the phone with you. Really important.
amazing. That leads into I've got a couple of questions which I'll come to, but that really leads into a question that I had when you were mentioning about the leaflet dropping. But bearing both of those systems and processes in mind, what really is what's the conversion rate? Like, what's a realistic conversion rate for both of those processes?
That's a really great question. And do you know what? There is no, sorry about this, but there is no, oh, it's every 13,774 leaflets, we get one sale. Uh, except on a bank holiday. It just doesn't work like that. So what I like to think of is I call it a marketing cake. Okay, so I like to bake marketing cakes. That's leaflets, that's ads, Facebook ads or digital marketing. That's lineage, that's postcards, that's all the stuff we talked about. And so we've baked this cake, and the result is leads come out the other end. You might get off 20,000, you might get 10 to 20 phone calls, and off that, you might get one or two sales, approximately. Okay. But if you were to bake a proper cake and you go, Dan, just take the eggs out of that cake, you can't do it because it's baked and it's the eggs don't make the cake, right? Neither does the flour, neither does the salt. I don't know what goes in the cake, neither does the sugar, help, and so on, right?
Flower.
So, flour, thank you. But quite a big ingredient there that I missed out. But you need all of those things to get that result. And people go, I get clients who go, yeah, I want to do rent to rent, and I just want rent to rent. I don't want anything else. And it's like that's not how it works. You put your marketing out, the phone calls come in, and then your job is to diagnose what's going on with that person. What is their problem? And then when you know what their problem is, you can suggest a couple of options, choices, like because lease options, let me not say options. You can suggest a couple of choices that they could make that might resolve that, and they will be warm to some of those and not to others. So if you say, "Oh, I just want rent to rent," but they want to sell, you can't rent to rent that. And then is it ethical to push for rent to rent? Which I don't think it is. So, but then you could sell that deal as a quick house sale, or if they want rent to rent and you're just interested in below market value, high yielding stuff, and you definitely don't want rent to rent, then you run some adverts for rent to rent. We've got this rent to rent. It's in Leeds. Um, the mortgage is 550. It'll rent 700. It's 4 bedrooms. You get 1,500 if you HMO it, but it's not in Article 4. All that stuff. So your job when all these leads come in is to then diagnose what that person needs and how you can help. So we match what they need really, and that will then determine possibly who you're going to sell that deal onto. But this takes me back to the scuba diving. You have to immerse yourself. These words come off my tongue incredibly easy because I've had these conversations a trillion times. I wake up in a cold sweat dreaming about it, So, and that's where success lies. Michael Jordan, or Kobe's a better example, actually. Kobe Bryant would get up at 4, he'd train at 7, he'd train at 4, train at 7, train at 12, train at 6. He'd do that every single day. And over a long enough period of time, when people are training twice a day and he's doing 4 times a day, he's the expert, and it's why he's Kobe Bryant. Um, Whereas other people, oh, I'm going to start this part-time business sourcing properties. It's like, what level of success do you really think you're going to have? Like, it's hard. It is hard work. It's challenging. Mindset's challenging. Your family will tell you it's not going to work, and when you fail, they'll go, "I told you so." And you got to rise above it. It's really challenging. What makes you think you're going to do that working part-time hours? You have to immerse yourself mentally, physically into that process of finding people with properties to sell and finding investors to sell them to.
Yeah, that's so key. Thank you for sharing that because I think, sometimes in this modern world, we're sold dreams, aren't we? That it's
Yeah,
easy, that it can be done in 90 days, etc. And that's not necessarily a lie because it happens, but they are the anomaly and not the norm.
yeah,
And I think when we go into entrepreneurship or business owners or anything like that, even investing, anything that's anything that's different to the status quo and not the regular employee route, and there's nothing wrong with being employed. I was employed for a very long time. Um, it's having that mindset around that and knowing exactly what you were just saying that your family are gonna think you're crazy. They're gonna wonder
you
why
do. Yeah,
you've got a solid
yeah.
job, why are you doing this? And you are going to come up against hurdles, but that mindset is so crucial, Daniel, and you touch on that a lot. What exactly would you say to someone who is starting out? And I'll go through the questions actually in the chat box after you.
Okay.
But what would you say to someone who's starting out in business, whether it be in property or in any other industry at all?
Yeah, so there's two things I want to say. The first one is, if at first your family thinks you're crazy, don't tell them you're doing property sourcing. Just tell them you're climbing Mount Everest, and then they'll think, "Oh, he's climbing Mount Everest. That's so crazy." And then they'll just leave you alone on the property sourcing stuff. I thought that was quite funny, so I thought I'd mention that. Um, so for someone just first starting out, I think, and we get people coming through, and they say, "I want coaching," and I'm like, "No, you definitely don't want coaching yet." Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the things that you don't know because you don't know them, right? Um, so you've got to go through the training to find out what you don't know. Then you'll start to know some of it. But even at that point, you still don't know the questions to ask yet. So when you get through the training, so that's immersion in education. That's the first bit. You want to eat, sleep, and drink it. Podcasts, training courses, networking events, and learning from other people, and so on. There's usually not many wealthy people. If you're looking to find investors at networking events, you're in the wrong place. Most people go to a networking event. I've got no money. That's why I've got a networking event. How many times do you go to an event and people stand up? I've got this deal, and they've been hawking the same deal for the last 6 months. And then someone else stands up and says, "I've got this deal. It's the same goddamn deal because it's the same deal going around." Do you know what I mean? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So you've got to immerse yourself into that level of education and speaking to people and get as much knowledge as you can. And then you're starting to close the gap between what you know and what you don't know, like, or what you don't know that you don't know. Then you've got to implement some of that stuff. So when we talk about dropping leaflets, you should go get 10,000 leaflets printed and go drop them. Drop the first couple of thousand on your own, find out how hard it is. Then you can at least have empathy for the people that you're employing to do that job. So that's like a staged process, isn't it? So number one is education and immersion in that. Number two is to get action taken. And this is really important because it comes back to mindset. So in that training that I provide, we do this called a Friday night review, and it's a time management training, and we include it for free because it's so valuable. And on a Friday night, I want you to look at what you said you were going to do this week and what you've actually done. And then I want you to look at what you didn't do. And the stuff that you didn't do, I want you to question Okay, I said I was going to drop 1,000 leaflets. Why didn't I drop that? And you go, well, I didn't have time. But did you? You had allocated the day. What was going on mentally there? Because that bit is really important. And when you get down to it, it will be, well, I'm scared of someone shouting at me, or I'm fearful, I've never done it before. Okay. But for lots of things, all of us have never done before until we do them. Yeah, your first time has to be sometime. So why not wait, just do it the next day and just go and absolutely do it. And if you do that across the board and work out what is actually stopping you from taking these actions, give you an example. We had a client and he hadn't got his leaflets printed. We're 3 weeks in. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he's like, oh, well, there were the printers, and there weren't ever printers, not even had them designed. And ultimately, he was actually scared of getting a phone call from a leaflet. That was the thing that stopped him printing the leaflets. And most people would go, oh, let's work on the leaflets. And I was like, no, 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 I'm NLP based and I understand people's psychology and that kind of thing. And I let's just delve into this. What is it that you're worried about when somebody phones you up? And so we role played that. So I was the seller, 100 grand house. No, you can have it for 70. I just need to sell. I just need to get rid of it. And all I asked him to say was, okay, we can do all of that. Would you like to go ahead with that then? That's all I wanted him to say. And he was tripping up over words. And so that process stopped him getting leaflets printed, which is crazy when you think about it, because like, how does that match that? But that's exactly what happened. And so just having that understanding that, again, what we talked about earlier, those obstacles, you're going to have them, you're going to have these mental blocks, and you need to work a way around those mental blocks. Um, so if you're first starting out, you've got to immerse yourself, then you've got to take the action, and then maybe do the coaching. I'm not keen on happy clappy training courses. I've done a lot of happy clappy training courses. I was at Funnel Hacking Live with Tony Robbins in February in Las Vegas, which was amazing, by the way. Best event I've ever been to. In America, happy clappy is their middle name, and and I'm sat there. No, we don't do this because we're British. And but like in the UK, they sell you a dream, get you all happy clappy, a lot of group hypnosis going on using NLP techniques, get you to sign up, run to the back. And it's like, no, no, stay away from those. Learn online, get that down. Like, I'm not saying don't go to those for that motivation, because I need motivation and I do need happy clappy courses to help my motivation, but I don't need them for the knowledge and education because I've already done that. I'm already very well read. I've read every book on the subject. Even the people that I hate, whose names shall remain silent. But like, I don't like them. I've read their book, sat there snarling at it as I'm reading it. But that knowledge is important. Do you know what I mean? So you have to put yourself into a position to win, and you can't put yourself into a position to win unless you know everything that you can learn.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. As you were describing that, that actually reminded me of my journey when I went from full-time employee into my property business. And I shared this with you, didn't I, Daniel, that I had episodes of imposter syndrome, and that voice comes in even while I'm talking to a landlord. The voice is there
Yeah,
at the back in the recesses of your mind. So, what are you doing? How are you going to do this? But you have to talk back to it, and you have to take the power back from that voice and prove. My strategy was, I used to have a list of the things that I had done, and used to talk to her because she was a her. Um, Actually nicknamed her Marie from Everybody Loves Raymond. That was her energy. So, but I used to prove to her, no, no, look, this is what we've done. This is what we've actually done already. Like, we're winning.
yeah,
So it would help that. So there are different strategies that people can use, but I think it's important, as you said, for them to really grasp their mindset and see where their subconscious patterns and behaviors and thoughts are, so that they can start to, I'm not sure if you can ever really eliminate them fully, but at least override them. Um,
yeah.
with the questions that have come in, and I love that, Daniel. I could talk forever about mindset. With the questions that have come in, we've got Simona's asked, what would you recommend as a strategy to focus on initially as a deal sourcer who is just starting out? I think she's put in later on that she's a full-time teacher, but her aim is to learn about deal sourcing and transition into this full-time. Do you think that this is possible?
100% possible. I've met teachers that have done exactly this. So uh, the easiest way of getting your first deal across the line, because really that's the question, right? if you don't mind me paraphrasing that. The easiest way is to go out and find an investor first. So in your immediate network of other teachers, and my wife's a teacher, and we live in Spain now, have done for 12 years, and she was going to quit teaching, and then we moved to Spain, and now she teaches in an international school. So we've gone through the requirement to leave teaching and all that paperwork and coming home in tears. I understand that. Uh, we've been there. So when you find the investor, and the way to find the investor is ask around, do you want to be a teacher for the rest of your life? Well, no, I'd like to get into property. Okay. Well, what's stopping you from doing that? I haven't got time to find the deals because of all the homework that we have to mark and all the prep stuff that we have to do. Okay. Well, have you got money available? Yeah, I've managed to save some. Okay. Well, if I got you the right deal that was going to generate X amount of pounds, would that work for you? Would that be something you might be interested in? Yeah, it might be. Okay. What sort of property are you looking at? A two bed back to back, £300 a month profit, or £200, or a HMO, whatever it's going to be. Okay, so if I could find that deal, would you pay me a sourcing fee? Yeah, how much? £1,000, £500, just to get you started, 2 grand, whatever, right? That's how you get your first deal across the line. Now you've got the investor on board, and if maybe not in the teaching area, a good place to find investors are at business networking events. And when you turn up to a business networking event, you're no longer a teacher. You are the purveyor of below market value, high yield buy-to-let properties. And we specialize in finding deals for investors. Um, and so you might meet an accountant and they go, well, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And go, well, how are you going to get out of being an accountant? Well, I'm interested in property. Oh, that's a coincidence. I just happen to source high yielding, below market value properties for investors just like yourself. Maybe we should have a chat. Brilliant. Swap business cards, write it down, move on to the next person. That's how you network a room. Don't spend an hour with the same person. You have to work the room. Now you're building up a list of investors. Obviously, I've said it in one sentence. It's not as easy as that. It takes work. It takes effort. You're going to have some failures. You're going to have some obstacles, but it's irrelevant. You just keep going. Take the emotion out of it. Pretend you're an android whose job is just to do that. That's a great way of dealing with it. Now you've got the investor. What you could do is you could go into one of the Facebook groups and go, and let's say that investor's after a 100 grand house, two bed back to back in Leeds with a rent of 700. You go to a Facebook group and go, hey guys, I've got an investor and this is what they're looking for. Has anyone got any deals that you want to join or co-source with? Just a brief thing on co-sourcing. You have to be compliant as a sourcer if you're going to co-source. Drives me absolutely insane. Tina Walsh was one of my coaching clients from many years ago. She now runs the, what's it called? Property sourcing. Yes. And we've had many, many conversations around co-sourcing and all that kind of thing. You have to be compliant as a co-sourcer. So get your compliance in place, folks. Really, really important. But when you're both compliant and that person goes, actually, I've got a two-bed in Leeds, struggling to sell it. And you go, okay, should we go 50-50 on the deal? And they'll go, yeah, that's brilliant. So if they go 50-50, you present the deal. You have to present the deal properly. We include some templates in the training as well. Now the deal is presented. And also remember, when you're presenting the deal, you're presenting you. Really important. If on your Facebook all it says is teacher, 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 hate teaching, right? Which I'm sure it might, that's not good enough. It has to say we source high yielding below market value properties. You've got to talk property left, right, and centre. You might have a Facebook page that does that for you and keep them separate. That's fine. But you've got to get known as a property sourcer so that when they are analysing the deal, they will also be analysing you. And if you haven't got that credibility as a sourcer, they're not going to buy the deal, regardless as to how good it might be, because you've not got that credibility. And that's basically it. You're matching people with a property to sell, and you're matching people with something to buy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it is possible to have your own Facebook page, LinkedIn business page. I used to have mine as well. So those are key things. So she
Yeah,
says, thank you so much. I do have a question from Jackie. She's asked because obviously I showed your deal sourcing training course.
yeah.
Jackie asked, is the course advertised a taster course, and then will there be an upsell during the course?
No. Well, I hate that. So everything's included from start to finish, absolutely everything. So I want to talk about it. So one of the reasons why we created this course was I got so fed up of these weekend courses charging £1,000 to go happy clappy dancing and then not tell you anything. And it's like 30% fluff and 70% networking. And I mean, don't get me wrong, networking's fine, but that's not what I went for. I went to learn the stuff. So give me the stuff. So I hate all that. There is no upsell. Literally, the only upsell is a 12-week coaching program, which is like £300, and it's group coaching, and that's it. You might want to buy a website from us, a couple of £100. We'd give a discount in there. That's it. There are no upsells. Everything is included in that. So, for example, things like contracts, NDAs, templates, that's included in there. What else is included? I can't remember offhand. So I'll make up the numbers, like 12 different ways of finding buyers, 7 different ways of finding investors. It'll tell you in that thing. Each video is about 5 to 7 minutes long. Because one of the other things I hate is when you buy a training course and you have to sit there for 2 hours. You just want this little snippet of information, right? Oh my God, you've got to sit there for the whole 2 hours. These days, by the way, I would download that course, put it into ChatGPT, and then ask ChatGPT for that little snippet. That's what I would do. But when we made this training, we put it into 5 or 6 minute videos, so you could be picking up your children from school and you're 10 minutes early, and you could learn something while you're doing it. My attention span is almost zero, so I assume everybody else's is ruined as well because of social media. And no one's going to sit there for 2 hours watching a course. And so that's why there are 90 videos and each one's really short, but not so short there's nothing in it. There's lots of content and lots of information. You actually don't need anything else than this training course. It will do it from start to finish and then add some extra stuff on top because of the some of the bonuses that we include in there, like the time management stuff as well. And in fact, you know what? If you just did the time management stuff properly, that's we include in there, your property sourcing business would take off in 2025. Most people haven't got that capability because they haven't got the discipline to run time management properly themselves, sadly.
Yeah, yeah. That's so key. Um, Simone's put, I'm getting on your training course.
Thank you, Simone. And you'll laugh as well, Simone, because I'm exactly like I am now, like I am on that course.
I love it. I love it. But
Heaven
it is
help
such a
us.
valuable, it's such a valuable course, Daniel. And it is, as I mentioned, it's only £27. So, you know, I can understand why Jackie asked, is that a trainer, a tech
Yeah,
course because of the price point? But actually, as you've mentioned, you give everything, it's in bite size. And then they're actually able to decide, is this for me? Rather than going to,
100%.
maybe investing 3,000 for a course and
Yeah,
figuring it out that that's not what they
yeah,
want to do.
yeah, I agree.
And just with regards to compliance, you know that we do compliance very, very well. And co-sourcing it happens all the time, but it's so important that the agent is insured and covered and registered and
Yeah.
regulated. Um,
I literally had this conversation last week, and someone came up to me and went, "Oh no, that's not accurate. You don't need to be compliant as a co-sourcer. I know a guy and he's been doing it for years." I'm like, "Well, he'll get a knock from HMRC. There's a letter running round on social media. I've saved it somewhere, and I think I've put it in the property training as to definitely why you need compliance." And someone got a knock on the door from HMRC, and they got fined thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. Just do the compliance. And this is the thing, when we talked about being a scuba diver and just sticking your toe in the water, you're either going to immerse yourself into being a property sourcer and a fully compliant sourcer, or you're not. And if you're not going to do it properly, you're just playing at it and you will be unsuccessful. Life is hard. Uh, if you're a teacher and you want to be a property sourcer, becoming a teacher was hard. Teaching is hard. Property sourcing is hard. There are benefits to property sourcing, like not having to teach every day and do all that kind of thing. But there's still difficulties in it. It's not easy. And especially at the start, you've got all these things to overcome, and it definitely gets easier with experience, like most things. But it's like pick your hard. Being overweight is hard. Going to the gym every day is hard. I go to the gym every day and I'm also overweight. But but it's like you've got to pick which path you want to go on. I just want to kind of end with this, I think. So I'm 52 and I started CrossFit 3 years ago, and I can do things now that I've never been. I can climb up a rope with no legs, like just using my hands. I can do handstand push-ups. I had this choice when I was approaching 50 and I was overweight and I was like, I lost, what did I lose? What did I lose? I think I lost like 10 kilos, something like that. A significant amount of weight. And I had this choice of I either get fat or I get fit. And it was simply a choice. Getting fat was hard because I had to move my tummy out of the way to tie my shoelaces. And getting fit is hard because then I had to eat properly and no sweets and work out every day. But they were both just as hard. And we reach a point in our lives where we make a decision that what we're doing now is painful, but it's not painful enough to make the change. When it gets painful enough to make the change, when I had to move my tummy out of the way to tie my shoelaces, that was it for me. I'm like, what on earth? I'm going to be dead in 10 years. It wasn't good enough. And we just, most of us just meander through life, not happy with where we are, but not in enough pain to actually make that change. Making the change is also painful, and the new learnings are also painful. But I like to think that in 10 years' time, when I look back, I've been in CrossFit competitions. I'm beating guys aged 30 at CrossFit sometimes, not always. And I talk about it to them as well, which really winds them up. And but life is hard, and we just get this one life to make it the best damn life that we can do. And it is hard getting onto that next level, but it is so worth it. That journey is where all the learnings are. And when I first started CrossFit, I didn't know anything, and I really enjoyed not knowing anything because I knew that I would reach a point where I could do it all, and I'm at that point now and performing well. And I kind of miss those old days of not knowing stuff. And that's the journey. We think it's the destination, and it's not. It's the journey and all the things that we learn and the people that we take with us on that journey. That's the important bit.
Oh, I love that, Daniel. I love that. That is Simona's actually said, Daniel, you're amazing. Um,
Oh, thank you, Simone.
I love that because that just sums up life. That just sums
In a
up.
nutshell,
Yeah, love it. So I think with that, that's the perfect thing to sign this show off. So I really want to thank you, Daniel, for your time. It's been
my
an
pleasure.
absolute pleasure uh, chatting with you, listening to you, hearing your words of wisdom and the journey as well, because that is invaluable. The wisdom that you've imparted on, the viewers that have been live with us today, as well as those that will watch on replay. So I really want to thank you for that, and to our viewers as well who are with us live. I usually give you a shout out. So there's Rob, Andrew, Dell, Pauline, Rebecca, Salim, Simone, Tara, and Trevor. So thank you all so much for attending. Really do appreciate you. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Thank you.